All right. We are live here on the Dev Talk Show on April 29th of 2020. So thank you for joining us, whether you're on Mixer, Twitch, or YouTube. We're here with my co-hosts Rich Ross and Andy Schwam. I'm Chris Gomez. And, you know, we finally made it to the end of April. I think April was something like 430 days this year. I don't know if it seemed like that for either of you two, but it did kind of for us. All right. So are we getting audio? We're getting everybody, right? Let's do a quick mic check. We've got Andy, we've got Rich. That's right?
I'm here.
And you got me too.
Okay,
Yep, all
cool.
three of us.
All right, awesome. All right, so hey, you know what? I'm going to basically steal everything that Andy said when we tried to open the show first time. We had some technical difficulties when you're watching this in the future. And he said we had a great show last week with Stashu Korik, which was absolutely true. We did have a great show with a lot of folks joining in to learn about F#. You know, he's made a name for himself in the F# community. Boy, that's easy to say, right? And I feel like we had a lot of F# aficionados in the chat, you know, kind of cheering for us and like, all right, yeah, you know, don't you guys love this? And it was fun. It was exciting. I really liked how it looked. So, you know, we do have some plans for some more guests. We've been talking to some folks. I think the excitement is stirring. And so pretty shortly, I think we'll see some more folks, right?
Yeah, I hope so. We have there's a lot of talk of people who want to come on and talk about some really interesting topics. And we're just trying to get some things scheduled and get some people, see a different set of faces and somebody else showing up in that fourth block there in the lower right-hand side.
Yeah. As they say, we got some irons in the fire, and you know, we're already seeing some feedback here from Chops and Jason Kurtz, so we know we're live, and thank you for joining us. So, you know, we said tonight we had a announcement on Twitter and our other the places where people find us on social media, on Meetup, saying that we're going to talk about solving Git puzzles. And this came about because, you know, just this week, I think I've had a couple lengthy calls with folks, you know, either that I work with or either just, you know, I think we talked about eliminating a large file, right,
Yeah.
Rich? And then Andy talked about you know, sometimes just some little basic things that sometimes, especially when you're starting a new project, that really bother me, and maybe they're not super obvious because they aren't, right? I mean, Git has a lot of commands that do multiple things, and even then aren't named clearly. But of course, like the Git experts will say like, oh, come on, you know, it's a directed acyclic graph. What's the problem?
Easy for you to say.
Yeah, it's easy to say, right? And so let's get started looking at some things. We're gonna call this. We've got a repository.
Let me switch over to you.
Yeah, let's switch over and take a look. We've got a repository here just called like Git Puzzles, and really there's an old web project of mine that I kind of threw in here, and I want to answer some of the questions that both of you might have. But let me start by asking if we started with a simple repo. Let's go ahead and try this like Ask Me Anything style from Andy here. Like what's a problem that comes up a lot when you are just working with a repo and you say, hey, I'm going to create I'm doing some work. I want to get some work done.
Yeah, I have, you know, I tend to have problems that I think, and I just want to, you know, back up kind of what you were saying. I don't think I even have the most complex of problems. I think that to me, Git, listen, we all know Git is a great source code solution, but I find that it's great when I'm just doing the normal stuff, but as soon as I need to do something that's just a little bit different, I'm always like, oh my God, wait, what? How do I do this? And add to that, sorry, I dropped something. Add to that, I don't write code, and I don't use source control like daily, right? And I think that there's a lot of people out there that are like that too. Now, if maybe you're using it daily, and that's great. But Mike's here. Hey, Mike.
So can I ask you something about when you say you don't use source code daily? Is that because you're not developing daily, or is that you're I just want to unpack that a little bit because it sounds funny.
Now, yeah, all right. I got to be clear here, right? No, I don't zip up my files and email them to
With the
myself
underscore
instead of
one
using
underscore
source
two,
control.
right?
Yeah, right. Does that count? No, I don't write code every day.
Okay.
Like I don't. I spend a lot of days. Well, like you probably have days like that too, like where you're doing demos all day
Sure.
long and things like that. There's so many things I do that when I do go to write code, I find that sometimes I'm slowed down with Git. So, I have trouble right off the bat sometimes. And people in chat, feel free to jump in and with questions and like back me up. So I don't know. Maybe I'm crazy. Maybe my problems are like really silly, but I'll have time where I'll just, I create something in Visual Studio and I want to check it into Git. And then I'll be like, oh, I didn't get a README file, or I don't have I have problems with, what do you call it? The git ignore files. Sometimes those aren't created automatically,
Sure.
and sometimes they are. And so those are some of the kind of things that happen sometimes. I don't know if you want to start with that.
Yeah. Okay. So first of all, let's talk about what a git ignore is. So
Did we lose Chris?
I just was wondering that.
Right.
Hello, Chris? So I can talk for a minute. I know what a git ignore file is.
Let's start there.
A git ignore file. What's
Let's
that?
start there.
Yeah, let's start with what Chris was saying. A git ignore file. And Rich, maybe send him a message.
doing it,
something like that. Well, yeah. So git ignore file is a file that you include in your repo. And it basically says, I have certain files, and sometimes it's very explicit, like you want to ignore a file like food.txt or something like that. I can be very explicit, and I can ignore certain types of files based on file extensions, wildcards and things like that. And there's a bunch of stuff you can do. And I'm really hoping Chris is going to come back and talk about this. But I know that there are things that we don't want to have in source control. And I see Chris's screen moving, by the way, and I see his face moving. Chris, do you have audio from you yet?
Okay.
yeah,
Chris is
I
back.
heard all of you fine, so I restarted the Skype.
Nice.
I kept hearing you and seeing you, but I could see that I was frozen. So I figured, I guess I'll just shut down Skype and restart it.
We've got gremlins
So-
on the show today, really, right?
Yeah. Maybe
week-
this is maybe it's peak Netflix tonight. Like this is it. This is the most that people are at home quarantined in the entire world watching video. It's tonight. It's on April 29th.
Every Wednesday.
And you think
I don't
that's bringing us down? Maybe. Yeah, whatever. So, Chris, I went on to talk a little bit about a git ignore file. Who got them wet? Don't feed the gremlins after midnight, right? Is that the rule, I think?
Yes.
We're dating ourselves on that movie. Chris, I was talking a little bit about what a git ignore file is, and I said that we have different file extensions you can put in there and use wildcards and things like that. And just basically to keep certain files that you don't want to have committed from being committed. And that's very common in Visual Studio solutions where there are just certain things you just don't want to have committed. I was just going through that, and that's about as far as I got.
Yeah, it's definitely pretty common for us Microsoft-based developers, right? Microsoft platforms, because we have this legacy of like, I'm just going to try and build this application real quick, of the bin and the obj folder. And is this true for both of you? Did you actually used to just kind of know what you shouldn't commit to SourceSafe, for example? Let's date ourselves, right?
You're bringing back memories. I totally forgot about that.
You just knew. You just said, yeah, you don't commit bin and obj, right? And you don't. There used to be a suo file. Remember that file?
Yeah.
Don't commit suo, right? A lot of that stuff has been moved to .vs now, so it's getting better. Right, here's suo sitting down in .vs, and it's getting better because I would say that dot folders have inadvertently become a more universal sign of don't commit this. Right, it might have started with the .git folder itself,
Sure.
But now we see that Visual Studio itself, and I've got this on screen. I've got File Explorer. All I did here was say file new project and create a new web application, and .vs is sitting in there, and that by default most gitignore files that are made for Visual Studio will not have that in there. You know what's really interesting, and just a quick aside, is that we've talked a lot on this show about the .NET command line for .NET Core that you can use not only to create new projects but also to run them and even to add things to them, like add new projects, add new solutions. I saw this funny little gem in .NET Core 3.1 when it came out. So if I say .NET new, and we're just going to call this like a throwaway project, and I don't even really care what it is. It's just the fact that it's, well, does it matter? Yeah, I think.
You have those in the wrong order?
Yeah, web throwaway, right?
Yeah, I think you're right. I think you're right that I want web here.
Yeah.
I don't think that you get a gitignore by default. I don't believe you do. Oh, that didn't work.
What did we miss?
Did I need to? What did
No, I don't think you have to do that, do you? .NET new. Did you need dashes on name? Oh, it's no, I think you had it right.
Let's just do it this way, where I go into the new folder and create the project. So this is doing this through the .NET CLI, the command line interface, just .NET new. Right. There's no gitignore in here, right?
Mm-hmm.
Well, check this out. .NET new.
Uh-oh.
Well, I might have to just look at the help. I think it's .NET new add. Maybe not. Here it is. See that .NET new gitignore?
Yeah.
So .NET new. This is. I have not seen this until .NET Core 3.1. So they said, okay, fine. Here's a gitignore file, and so now it's in the project.
Wait, slow down. Where? Oh, there it is. .gitignore. Okay, I see it on like the third line there. Yep.
So they just just a little throwaway thing in the .NET CLI is that the gitignore is in there, but you might be wondering, where does that come from? And a pretty popular repo has formed on GitHub itself. It's actually part of the GitHub organization, and the repo itself is called gitignore. And inside gitignore, there are gitignores for all kinds of project types and platforms. I mean, here's, Elm, Elixir, Go, Gradle. I mean, it goes on and on and on. PureScript, Python. There's one called Visual Studio.gitignore.
All the way down the bottom.
And this is it's maintained by a lot of contributors, but some of them are contributors that, for example, Syed here, who works on the ASP.NET Core team. So you get interesting bits like that, where folks who work in the community, and like here's a Microsoft MVP for Azure. And then you also, every once in a while, I'll recognize somebody and I'll say, oh, that's somebody from Microsoft. So, they're just adding things that you might expect to find in here. So to your point, Andy, if you create a new Visual Studio project, you can either get a gitignore file you can get the latest from Visual Studio gitignore, or we now have built into the command line interface, it goes and it grabs that. There are some things I don't know about when it grabs that gitignore file. I don't know if it grabs what's latest up on GitHub, or is there some version that they shipped with .NET Core? I don't know the answer to that. Yeah. And an ongoing problem with gitignores is that if you wait long enough, eventually you'll say, boy, that little file there from whatever that is looks like junk. I wonder why it's not being ignored. And it's because you probably haven't updated the gitignore file for your project for a year or two or something like that. So I see those kinds of things happen with gitignores. You're right that a new Visual Studio project doesn't contain one. You're also right, a new project you make from the command line doesn't seem to contain one. But there's that little bonus. That may even exist here. If I say add new item.
I was going to ask you, that was where I was going to go, is if you went to new item, is gitignore a thing here? And you can type under search, right, but I don't know if you type in ignore or git or what.
Just real quick, just curious. I'm not sure that we'll see it.
Because I mean, it's not part of your project. It sits outside your project. It just sits in the repo where all your project stuff is.
Yeah, you can take a gitignore and put it in the root folder, which is what most of us do, and then it takes effect for the entire project. You can do some fun stuff with git ignores that I'm not sure there's a whole lot of call for. You can layer them in subfolders, and then they take effect from that subfolder on, things
Sure.
like that. But and I'm not trying to say that that's not useful sometimes. It just isn't something I've needed that often. I can only think of one time. Boy, here's another blast from the past for folks like Mike Devaney and three of us here, right? And anybody else
Calling us
who's
old?
watching. Well, there's some gray up here, right? Remember Install Shield?
Oh, wow.
Oh God.
So Install Shield, to this day, when it creates your setup file, by default will make it on the longest path in human history. In fact, it's one of the few pieces of software that will go ahead and break some Windows folder length, path length issues that still exist to this day, because it just, I don't know why. I don't know. And so and unfortunately, a lot of development teams might not realize that they're checking in something like that. And so in order to avoid colliding with possible folder names that the teams might choose, because these names were really generic and they were also based on things in their project, I did distribute a git ignore that I would tell teams to put in a subfolder. So that way I was saying to them, hey, I know this will prevent you from committing all this Install Shield stuff that you don't want to commit, but it also won't conflict with other files in your project that have the same exact name, because it was crazy. It was a real mess.
Right. So what you're saying there is, because I don't think I picked it up at first, right? So I just want to make sure I understand this. I think what you're saying is, if I have a root folder and a nested folder and a 3 levels deep, if I put in a git ignore file in that folder, it will just apply to the changes within that scope.
Right.
Right. Just like you could even do like nested web configs back in the day, right? Like that's what made me think of a little bit.
Yeah.
So that is a good tip, because I don't know if that is widely used or widely understood.
Yeah, and I think Mike's right. Like, we all want to avoid committing our node modules folder.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because you create a new project in Node and you've already got 12,000 files and 600 folders, and that's to do Hello World. So in any case, there's an answer on git ignore.
So do me a favor, on the topic of git ignore, and this will get to one of the problems I've had actually, is if you look in this git ignore, which by the way I can barely read, I think it's the white background, or maybe you could blow that up a little bit, or
it's just tiny print. Let's see.
Yeah, maybe you can enlarge that a little bit. So the file that I'm wondering about is app settings development.json.
Yeah. So like,
I don't know if it's in the git ignore.
I'll tell you why I don't think it would be, because that can legitimately be used to configure development environments, but that doesn't mean you shouldn't put it there.
Right. I tend to want it there because I put local like stuff in there, and
you want it to be a local development.
Yeah, maybe right. Maybe I'm using the wrong file, but that doesn't matter, right? I was taking it to mean local. So maybe I'm just wrong there, but I always want to add app set. What happens is I'll end up checking in some local database connection string or something like that and I know we should use secrets for these things, by the way, Rich. I know Rich is sitting there going, why not? Right, Rich? You were thinking it. I should use secrets.
A little bit.
Yeah.
But
exactly.
The secret stuff is pretty nice,
because
it doesn't get put in this folder anywhere, but I feel like that's a different show.
Yeah, that is a different show.
So,
it's a good show.
Yeah, but it's one that maybe we should do. So in any case, let's take a look here. Like, just as an example, I've just got this folder, and I think I've got it cloned. Let's see, I've got it cloned here, and I'm pretty sure that it's in the same. Oh no, it's not. I got to move to a different.
So F Zametti is in chat. Hello, F Zametti. Says commit hooks are your friend. Now, I don't know much about commit hooks, by the way. I don't know if that's a topic for a Git tip or something like that, but I'm not even familiar with what that is.
Yeah, I'm not sure if it has to do with Git or or GitHub, to be honest with you.
Ah,
One thing that I often say about Git is that I actually am kind of down to like, I really just kind of use 4 commands. And I was thinking about it. I was saying, I think I make my living just on this. I don't try to pretend that I know how to use uh, like checkout in the craziest way or merge in the craziest way because I just don't need to. I can do just about everything just by
well, maybe we can focus on those 4 commands because I don't use a couple of those. I don't even know what they are. I mean, I've let's put it this way. I've used them when I've Googled like I screwed up Git and I'm in trouble. And I just glanced at that screen you had up there and I'm like, oh, those are the things that people tell me to do, right? So if you explain some of those, that might answer a lot of the problems that we might have. Or I don't know if that's something we could do, or we could look at an example. So it looks like commit hooks are a mechanism on a server side that allows you to enforce certain rules on pushes. Must have a JIRA ticket number in the message. Maybe right, I got you. And that's server side, not client side.
I think I think Azure repos, and I'm pretty sure GitHub and Bitbucket have a lot of different things you can use. For example, you could build a GitHub action to make sure that a commit,
cool,
it met some kind of a. But we don't have anything like that set up. So
no, that's good to hear about. Thanks,
but I don't. I was just thinking as part of Git, I didn't. Although I would have been willing.
It's not part of Git. He says it's not part of just Git.
I understand.
GitHub, GitLab.
But believe me, if somebody said like, "Hey, that's part of Git," I'd be like, "Yeah."
Thanks for sharing. Appreciate that.
No, I do definitely appreciate that. So let's see here. What if? Why? Just nothing.
Somebody had a typo. That's funny. Very good. It's a clean show here, but I think that was an honest mistake. Yeah. Chris,
okay.
Are you still there? Okay. I get nervous if Chris is quiet here.
All right. So let's say that we were working on a web project that hopefully will open because for some reason Visual Studio Code wasn't opening. There we go. Let's say we had a project like this. And there's nothing special about this. I don't want to dwell too much on the project. But it's just a simple web page with a CSS file and a JS file. And let's just pretend that we have some product that we use on the server, and I downloaded a license file for it. So I have this license file, and I have to put this on the server somewhere. But I wasn't paying close attention, and it's sitting here. It's sitting here in the project folder, and without paying a whole lot of attention, I say, okay, I know I've got some stuff to commit, so let me do a lot of you do this, git add dot, which just everything that's modified or new. I think a lot of us do it. I avoid it because I've gotten bitten by this enough. But in any case, let's say you do that, and you don't even notice that you are about to commit this license file. You don't notice, and I'm even going to do this the fast way and say, let's see, what did we add here? We added we changed the color scheme or something like that. There's like a CSS change there. So it's totally
not part of the licensing.
Yeah, it's totally unrelated. In fact, we didn't even want that file.
Yeah, this is a scenario that I run into, definitely.
Okay, so now I haven't committed anything. All I've done is acted on my repository locally. And so I think, as you both know, my favorite visual Git tool is Gitkraken. And the main reason I like it, the thing that I try to impress upon people, is the reason I like it is because of how it visualizes the commit graph. Sometimes when you are looking at the commit graph here, this is just like 1, 2, 3. It doesn't show you how commits are coming together and splitting apart. It just shows you them in order, and it's in a chronological order. And in certain cases, depending on how branch heavy and how merge heavy your tree is, they'll be in this chronological order that doesn't match up logically with how the commits were added. And so you can even see this is a little nutty, right? One thing that a lot of people may not know is that a commit has one or more parents. So here's a commit that has two. And the reason why it has two is because a merge was performed. And so Git says, well, you're asking me to merge this in with these commits. Well, the only way I can make that happen is to create another commit that reconciles the differences between them both. I don't have any other way to do it. So in any case, I went ahead and we did this change color scheme, but and this is what I love. I love that I can hide and show the remote. The remote status is still the previous commit. So I haven't done any damage, but maybe I do notice. I say, whoa, hold on. Wait a second. I don't want to commit that. So I haven't done anything up at the repository that matters yet. And then, to be fair, I am working on master, which I probably shouldn't be. So there's that. So maybe the first thing I should do is switch off of master
and move that thing. Now, just want to jump in. Jason Kurtz is saying that, and I don't know if you've seen this. I know you like Git Kraken. He's saying that VS Code has some features like this built in. Now, when you say built in, it's probably an extension, I'm guessing.
No, I think just the plain old Git stuff isn't too bad. Let's see if it comes up quickly. There are some extensions, though. There are some extensions, but I thought that I could quickly see the view. I know what you're talking about, though.
Yeah.
Well, maybe we'll try and figure that out a little later.
Yeah, we'll try to figure that out.
So,
thanks, Jason.
In any case, so here's something that happens a lot. Oops, I forgot to branch first.
Yeah, big one for me. Yeah.
So for me, this is where you start to learn that in fact, here's the other thing I like about Git Kraken here. You see how it's showing you that these branches it's almost like they're notes that are pinned to commits. That's because this is how Git actually thinks. Git doesn't look at having multiple branches here as like copies of the repository over and over and over and over. Git doesn't even think that way. So I'm going to go out to the command line. And if I want to create a new branch, there's two ways I can do it. They're identical except for the last step. So I could say git branch. And let's say this feature was maybe where we work, we always say feature, and then we say what we're doing. Where you work, it could be the bug number.
Yeah, right. It doesn't matter. Yeah.
Doesn't matter. So I say git branch feature columns color scheme. Now the reason I want to come back to Git Kraken is I want you to see what really happens. All that happens is a second pointer is created and attached to the very same commit. That's it. That's all that happens. I like to call these sticky notes, post-it notes.
Okay, wait. So slow down here, because this is where it takes me a while to absorb this stuff, if you don't mind, right? And maybe other people are like that are watching too. So you committed code to master. It wasn't just changed files.
Right.
You committed it. Yeah, on accident, right?
Commits
and
here.
so now you're putting a new branch off of that. But are you saying that change color scheme commit is in the new branch, or is it
the same commit? It's the same commit. So here's the thing about Git. Commits are the first class object. They're the first class object. Commits, not branches, not tags. Branches and tags are merely signposts on the road.
Yeah.
That's all they are. So you'll notice it doesn't even look like anything happened.
Right.
And we can still see that the change color scheme commit is commit 50F856. It's that whether it's master pointing to it, it doesn't matter if feature color scheme is pointing to it. It's still 50F856. That will never change. This particular commit right here made it this time on this machine with these files is that hash forever.
Yeah.
So that's the first thing, is because I think a lot of us in our brains, when we say we made a branch, what we think happened, because we're thinking like a branch is on a tree. We're thinking that another branch was grown and my commits maybe were copied over to it, because that's what happens in Subversion. That's what happens in
Mhm.
CVS, I believe, but I'm not positive about that. Actually, I think it is Subversion that does the copy files, but Git doesn't do that. Git just takes. This is why I like the Post-it note analogy. Git just takes its Post-it pad, says, "All right, feature color scheme. Let me put it right on the same commit that master's on."
Okay.
That's all Git cares about. So now I'm still checked out on master. The reason I know that is because of the check mark, but also I like to go back to command line because not everyone may have Git Kraken. And I want to show them that this isn't about relying on the tool. It's not what it's about. We are on branch master. Okay. That's because I use the git branch command. The git branch command says where I'm pointing to now, create a new sticky note and put it there, but don't switch me to it.
All right. That's opposed to like using like the checkout command or something like that, right? Yeah.
If
yeah.
I said git checkout dash brie and I said blah blah, I'm now telling Git create another sticky note, put it on the same commit, and this time switch to that branch.
So if you had done, you said blah blah, but if you had never done the step before this,
Yep.
and you did git checkout dash b feature color scheme, the same thing would have happened, but you would just switch to that branch, right?
Right. Yep.
Yeah.
But now I just went ahead and hit enter.
Okay.
So I switched to a new branch, blah blah. Let's go see how it looks now. We now have 3 sticky notes pointing to the same commit. And I happen to be checked out on blah blah.
Oh, the check is the checked out one. Okay, that makes sense.
That's just Git Kraken. I don't have to rely on that. I can come here and I can say git status, and there's nothing in it says, hey, this is the branch you're on, right? Okay. So what's nice about this though is that this means that I am free to now check out master. And why am I free to do this? Because I basically created git checkout master. I created a another commit or two that are holding that commit in place for me. I'm sorry, I said that wrong. Another branch or two that are holding that commit in place. And now that master is what I'm checked out on. The word checkout just means that you've kind of got to deal with Git. That's the sticky note that I'm talking about right now. All my future operations. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pick this sticky note. I'm going to peel it right off the commit that it's on, and I'm going to peel it back on. I'm going to push it back on this commit because that'll match me up with what the remote is pointing to, and that will save me from headache.
And the one below that has the logo, that's the remote.
Yep.
Is that why it's got the logo?
Yeah. So Git Kraken will use the logo of the account holder on GitHub, which is kind of cool, actually.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so the Dev Talk Show we have a repo, we have an organization on GitHub, and this repo is in there, and that's where I cloned from. So in any case, this is where, remember I showed you just a second ago, these are commands they're kind of in my toolbox here. I'm surprised that went away.
Where'd it go? Right, I wanted to write those down.
Okay. So the top one, git reset to some location -- hard. Now there are 3 ways to reset, but right now we're just going to focus on a hard reset. So I'm checked out on this branch, meaning that I'm pointing to that sticky note. I'm going to come to the command line. I'm going to say git checkout. I'm sorry, that's not what I meant to say. I'm going to say git reset, but where do I reset to? Now there's a couple.
Wait. What is reset? Tell us what reset means, because you're going to reset.
Reset means more than one thing, but one of the things it means is pick up the sticky note and move it to where I tell you.
Oh.
That's why I said git reset location.
Oh, okay.
Location can be written more than one way.
So I thought reset would have meant just like wipe out whatever I have on me to a certain point, but it's not really what it is. I mean, it might act that way.
It can do that, but it's not the way I like to think of it.
Yeah, no, and I'd rather kind of learn it the way you're talking about it. Like I see the difference in what I said versus what you said.
Yeah. So just to have a little fun, see this commit way back here?
Mm-hmm.
It has a commit hash of B53014. Just to make it easier on myself, I'm going to click to copy it. But I mean, I could have typed that in. No big deal.
Right.
And I'm going to say git reset, and there's the hash location. You don't have to know the whole thing. That's good enough. 5 is probably good enough.
Oh, that's what
Git,
those are just the beginning of a long thing. Okay, I didn't know that.
yeah,
Okay.
Git just has to be able to differentiate it from the other commits. That's all.
Huh.
And then I'm going to use dash dash hard. We will talk later about the difference between hard, mixed, and soft. But for now, let's just understand that this command is going to pick up the sticky note, move it to where I said, and then it is also going to overwrite my folder with the files from that commit at that point in time, which is actually what I want right now. So
Right.
let me do that. And now watch what happens when I come back in here. My master branch moved way back in time.
Mm-hmm.
Not useful for the problem we're trying to solve, but it should illustrate that you can move it wherever you want.
Yeah.
As long as you know, as long as you're okay with the files being changed. In fact, if I were to go back to my project, for one thing, I think, see, now let's not look at the open editors. A lot of files are missing now.
Sure.
Just index and readme. It was way earlier in the game. Okay,
Yeah.
now let's do what we really wanted to do. We wanted to match this up with this commit. Now, I will tell you, my muscle memory is to do this by commits, but I think this remote is named Just Get Coding. It's not Origin, but I think I can say git reset and use the remote name and say master, and I think it'll move
Right,
it.
right. I'm sorry. So I'm not.
Yeah,
I don't follow what you're doing there. So what? How is that different? Like you didn't give it a commit version number. So what would it use? Even though you said master, like I don't understand what that was.
You can specify.
Uh-oh, we're losing Chris, and I can't cover for him here. No way.
This is some of the stuff that Chris does really well. So
yeah, and I don't know if he can still hear us. Maybe
probably is.
Last time he heard us. I was thinking that so I had in mind like a couple of questions, and to me this is better than the questions because he's explaining these key features of Git source control, and by understanding these, it's sort of like leading a horse to water. No, that's not the one. You can give a man a fishing pole. Or something. I don't know.
But you can't take him to Burger King.
Right.
You can't take him. My point is that yeah, give him fish, or you can give him a fishing pole. I asked for fish. I said, Chris, show me how to solve these problems. But what Chris is doing is he's giving me the fishing pole. That was the analogy I was looking for.
Right.
Fishing pole and the fish. Because I think really by learning these key commands, this is what what someone like me needs to understand, and this is really good. But I didn't understand what you were doing when you did git reset, just get coding /master.
Right. There's more than one way to specify a location in Git. There's multiple ways. One of them is by the commit hash. And I will tell you, I reach for the commit hash a lot. Why do I reach for the commit hash? Because this tool makes it easy for me to do so. Right? It's just here. It's here. It's waiting for me. But in interest of being complete, if I say that I want to reset to this remote's master branch.
Oh, that's the remote, right?
Yeah.
Wait, so that's going to take me back to whatever is checked into master, which happens to be before the commit.
Right. Basically, right where I wanted to be.
Oh, that's an easy way. If you only need to go back like a step like that, which is usually the case, I think.
If you need to go to a specific location. Now, let's try a different one. Let's try. Have you seen this nomenclature here? Where you say git reset and then somebody does this and then puts a tilde here and then like a 3. Yeah. So this is kind of like saying head, which is so head in Git is always the commit you are pointing to right now. Always. That's what head means. It always means that.
Okay.
So right now I'm pointing at this commit, so this is head.
Yeah.
But I don't find it to be the most useful thing in the world to care what head is. I'm not saying that it's not an important Git concept. It is, but for day-to-day work, I don't care that much. So this is kind of like saying kind of, and that's why I wanted to say kind of for the Git experts watching us right now on Mixer, Twitch, or YouTube, or after the fact, is it's kind of like me saying go back 3 commits. So watch what happens when I run this one. You've probably seen people do this before, and then you've thought, oh, I've got to learn what this means.
So what's really important here, by the way, is what I'm getting from a lot of this, right? You started this off right by saying you made a new branch, and so that that color scheme commit now exists on another branch. You
Yep.
can move this thing 50 times and you're
Yep.
not nervous about it at all, are you?
No,
You don't
because
really care because you
no,
can just move it back again afterwards.
I can move it back because it's the beauty of being on your local machine.
Yeah. Yeah.
And this may eventually, I'm going to plant this seed right now, and maybe someday the light bulb will go on. It could be this show, it could be another show. This is why I like the concept of GitHub's forks, where it gets the repo is cloned into your own repository that you own in complete isolation, and then you clone it down to your machine. Azure Repos doesn't quite do that. That doesn't mean it's bad. It's just different. It's just that I will tell you I have a preference for the isolated forks that GitHub and Bitbucket provide, and others do too. Those are the things I kind of study is how the different systems work.
Mm-hmm.
So let's finish this off now that we've took that
Yeah.
big detour, and let me go ahead and say git reset. And now I'm back here where I belong. I'm safe. And now I can safely check out. I can go back and check out, not using -B because we're not creating anything. I can go back and check out that, boy, of course I would give it a really long name.
Yeah.
And I can check out the branch that I intended to commit all along. And then because this one isn't sitting up in the origin repo, I suspect that I'm going to get yelled at here when I say to push this. I think it's going to tell me, let me think, git push.
You need a remote named just coding, right?
The remote is just git coding. Oh, I said just coding. Thank you.
Yeah.
I think it should. Oh, it didn't. Okay. I thought it was going to complain to me saying like, hey, you don't have a tracking branch, blah, blah, blah. But now if we head over to Git puzzles and we refresh, we're going to see that it's telling me, hold on a second, you just committed this branch. Yay. And I can now see it. It's here. That's cool, right?
Mm-hmm.
Now I did a couple things I still committed that license.
Right.
Yeah. Which I didn't mean to do.
So now what?
So let's I think for now the easiest thing to do is delete the branch up on GitHub, because it's probably easier to go over this first without getting GitHub involved. So
It says ignore and stop tracking, but maybe we'll come back to that. I just wanted to get his.
You can do a couple things. So anyways, we let's go back to the original problem of, well, the first problem we actually ended up solving was, oops, I accidentally worked on the master branch.
Mm-hmm.
So the second problem we're going to solve is we're going to say, well, we really wish that we never committed this in the first place. So, there are a couple ways to do this. And I'm going to rely on the tool I know once again, which is Git. And actually that's not true, Mike. Don't take that tone to mean that, because there are multiple ways to do things in Git. Because he had just made the comment like that I kind of gave off, and maybe you shouldn't do it that way. What I'm more confident in the things that I know better. That's what it is. So in any case, what I can
That's
do
a good
now
answer, by the way, right there. Like there are other ways to do this, right?
Yeah. There are other ways to do this same thing, and an expert might say like, "Boy, you really made this hard." Well, I know, but I know how to do it this way. So remember, I told you there were 3 types of resets.
Yeah.
There's
hard, soft, and mixed. I think you said. Yeah.
So now we're going to explore a soft reset. A soft reset says pick up this. They all do the same thing. They say pick up the sticky note and move it where I say. But the difference is how to treat both your staging area and the files on your disk.
Ooh.
Soft says don't touch either. Leave them alone. And the reason I'm going to use soft here is because I don't actually want to get rid of my changes. I made real changes here in the site CSS. There's a line that changed. I went to an RGB color apparently from Blanched Almond, and favorite team survey instead of survey. So let's very quickly, let's do a git reset, and we'll use this nomenclature to go back one.
So wait. What problem are we trying to? Just so I get this, like.
So the problem we're trying to solve now is we're trying to say, oops, I haven't pushed to another repo yet. I haven't pushed to the main repo yet, right?
Well, you
But
pushed it to the remote though, right?
I did, but I went and deleted that branch. So by deleting that branch, I might as well have
Oh.
never pushed it. And
And
I want to tell you, that was a contrived way to get us to reset us.
so wait, so if you delete a branch, because
Mhm.
one thing I always heard, and this is maybe just answer this question for me. I was always told like once something's really committed to a Git repo, it's kind of hard to get rid of it. But that's really only if it's in master. Like it's hard to get rid of it once it would be in master, I guess, right?
So yeah, and so most organizations use master as one of their like important branches that multiple people work in. Builds are made off of. Um, you might call those a public branch or a community branch. Some organizations will call it trunk. Um, However, whatever you call it, and you might have more than one in your repos. You might rely heavily on master or trunk, and you also might rely heavily on like another one that maybe when you promote to that, it pushes to prod. I don't know. But these are important release branches. Those are the ones that you will have a harder time changing because it is like pulling the rug out on your teammates.
Yeah, yeah. This
But
one you just deleted. Like who cares? You
but a
just knew that it
branch,
didn't
right,
matter.
a feature branch that maybe you're the only one in, or maybe you and I are the only one in Andy. I might even tell you, Andy, I'm going to go delete this up on GitHub. And you say, well, what should I do? Just delete it. Okay.
And
Yeah,
No
and
big
then
deal.
because you have it locally anyway, so you could always recommit it, I think, right? Or
Yeah.
repush it.
Yep.
and it is one
Yeah.
of those things
Okay.
where while process wise you don't want to go and do those things against the master, push came to shove and you needed to do something, there's ways that you can do it. I mean,
Yeah.
the problem you helped me unstick myself from last week, Chris, was all around having a file that accidentally got committed to the master, and there's a
Yeah.
way to undo it. Like, granted, it was just a couple of us working in it, but and I think the reason I mention that is there is that perception that, and rightly so, right? The master is the golden branch, right? That we don't, or whatever you're using. But if you get stuck, there's ways to make the problem go away in the right fashion.
Yeah. And your whole team could do what I just did.
Yep.
If you went to your whole team and sent an email and said, hey, you know what, we had an unfortunate situation and we had to force push to master. So everybody, if they have the kind of training that everyone's getting now, they shouldn't worry about that at all. They'll just say like, well, let me just go reset my master to origin master and I'm good.
Yeah, and we did that with
Now,
Andy, so he could get in sync, and
we
yeah,
did. There's some fear there. It's easy when there's only two people.
yep, absolutely,
It's hard when your organization is 55 people playing in the same repo.
no doubt.
So you got to, those are considerations,
Yep.
right? So I will admit we're resetting a little bit here, and I don't mean that was a bad pun. We're saying new scenario. It was the one that we talked about first, but we didn't end up dealing with. We ended up dealing with the oops, I committed to master locally. What do I do? And for me, the solution I like to use is what we just did: create another branch and then reset master. I personally enjoy. I think I strive to keep my local master in sync with origin master, and I just don't let them ever split apart. I just leave them. Other people push to master, fine. I'll take those commits on master. I will work on branches. But the problem we were
Yeah.
trying to solve here was look, I committed. I made a commit with the license file. What do I do? Now, there's obviously things you could do. You could revert this commit for one thing. I'm not a big fan of git revert, but that doesn't make it wrong. You git revert basically tells Git to apply another commit that undoes what you did. That's all. It's
But that doesn't actually revert it, right? Like the history will show the commit and
Yeah.
then the revert, right?
right. So it's not always desirable.
Yeah.
And what I'm going to do now is I'm going to say I'm still local. We fixed the problem we had before, and then just at the last second before I push up to Git, I say, oh, whoops, license.license
Yeah,
is in
right.
there. Oh man, okay, what do I do? Well, one way to solve the problem is I'm going to demonstrate a hard reset real quick, and the reason why is because if I do that hard reset, okay, and we still have blah blah there to go back, so I don't care too much. License is gone.
Yeah.
But what else is gone? That change I made to the title, the survey,
Oh, yeah.
and I think I made one other change in the CSS.
Yeah,
That blanched almond is back. So that's a little too destructive.
Which is a great color, by the way. Let's not
Yeah.
lose sight of the fact that blanched almond is beautiful.
Right. So a hard is not the correct choice there because hard says move the sticky note and reset your index/staging area, wipe it out, and reset all of your files to the state of this commit. That's too much. That's too much for this situation.
Yeah.
So what I'm going to do is I'm going to reset back to blah, blah. So it's kind of nice that we have blah, blah there. In fact, I will tell you, people have, Rich, I think you know, you witnessed this. I will, instead of trying to remember commits all the time, I will leave signposts like that when I'm doing something. Just to say, just in case I screw it up, I can run back there. And then later I'll just throw it away.
Right.
So here we are. Here we are. We're going to do a git reset soft this time. And let's use the commit hash because this is the way I tend to roll anyway. 53F AEB. 53F AEB -- soft. And I'm going to use soft, which is going to say, okay, don't touch what's in staging. Turns out there's nothing in staging. And don't touch the files on disk.
Okay.
Okay. So now I have my sticky. Let's let GitKraken catch up here. And it has. And here's what I'm going to do. I love doing this, by the way. Blah, blah is distracting me. So let's just wipe it out. We're just going to turn off the I.
Well, yeah,
So
you didn't
now
wipe it out. You didn't wipe it out
right.
at all. Right.
You're right. Let's turn off. Let's not look at it anymore. I love this feature about GitKraken.
Uh-oh.
Okay. I accidentally double clicked on it, so it tried to check it out. So in any case, this is the state I expected. The sticky note has been pushed back, but look, my files in my working directory are in their former state. Sorry, I showed you the wrong files.
Yeah.
Instead of showing you the changed files, here are the changed files.
Yeah.
The RGB, the favorite team survey, and then there's license.
So they're in there. So if we look at VS Code,
Yep.
they're there. They're sitting there, right?
Yep. And these files were not reset because I did a reset soft, which says don't touch what's staged and don't touch the files on disk.
Yeah.
So now I can say this. I can say, yeah, this really can't be here. Let's open it up and let me just get it out of here. I've got a special place on my computer for it on the desktop. Let's move it there. It's gone. Now I'm clear. Now I'm clear to commit.
And if you commit, that other file is just sitting there waiting for you to, like, the CSS change is still there.
Yeah, right.
What happened here? You still have license listed as like a, seems confused.
It's not that it's confused. It's that, let me get this closed. Let's get GitKraken. Oh, GitKraken didn't close, did I? Oh, I didn't mean to actually close the repo. That was a mistake. Okay, so the file's now unstaged, right? Because it was previously staged. Let's take a look at how this looks in Git status. That's the most important thing. It's saying that I want to unstage. I need to unstage this license file. Git restore. That's staged. Actually, this is a new command. Restore is new in Git. Let's get that out of there. And now
it's restoring it from, like, what is that doing?
So when I did a soft reset, I didn't touch the staging area. So unfortunately, the staging area still has to kind of be fixed, right?
Oh, so the staging, even though the file isn't even there, you moved it to desktop. The staging area thinks the file was staged.
Yeah. So staging it's like a secret place that's sitting in the Git folder. When you stage files, a copy is made when you stage them.
Really?
In fact, you could go make more changes, and those changes won't go up because you didn't stage them. So now I'm in a place where I have a commit with the two files I expect to be staged, and this is the commit I wanted. So soft was kind of soft worked, but maybe mixed was what we really wanted because it would have wiped the staging area but preserved the files. Maybe
that's what mix does. Mix
does.
Wipes the staging, but keeps the file. So mix would have been exactly what you would have wanted.
It might have been what we wanted. So let's find that out. Instead of finishing this off, let's go ahead. What would I use, Andy, if I want to go back to where blah blah was?
Well, you would do. Well, you're doing it, so I guess
I was going to stop though.
Well, you said, if you want to go back to where blah blah is.
I want to put everything back the way it was.
I think you want a hard
file. Yeah, I want to put everything back the way it was.
Right.
Okay. So now I can say, you know what? I think I actually wanted mixed. I think I wanted mixed.
The key to
So
this thing is this little subtle thing, though. By the way, I'm sorry, I have to interrupt.
yep.
These commands are all great and helpful, but the key, I think, to making this so much better is that that step of making a branch like blah blah or whatever. Like it's the safety net here.
It's yeah. And so I've really taken to calling them sticky notes because I think you'll begin to understand they're just things you pick up and slap down at your convenience. You're in control. And yeah, this is how when I'm solving difficult problems, this is how I work. And I recognize that that if you're watching this today on, whether you're watching right now on Mixer Twitch, you're watching in the future on YouTube, and you say, hey, look, you could have done this all in one command. Like you made that a lot harder. You're right. You're right. I agree. But mixed. So what's mixed going to do? It's going to leave the files, but wipe the staging. So I think we're right here. Oh, and I don't want to reset to color scheme. That's not right. I want to reset to, well, I can just say I want to reset to master, frankly. And let's see what we get. So now we have kind of what we wanted, 3 unstaged files that were not altered because we wiped the staging area clean. Let's go take a look at that and get status. And it's saying, yeah, you modified these 2. This one's untracked. Wow, that's almost perfect. They're all unstaged anyway, so I could pick them up and move them out. I am going to have to get back in here, and the file reappeared because we said in our hard reset, we said to do that. So let's just move it here. I know it's going to complain, whatever. Replace the file. Now it's gone. So now if we go to get status says, perfect. The 2 files I wish that I committed in the first place. That's what I wish I did. So I can even do the wrong thing here, or the be careful thing, get add dot, and they're there. And now I'm ready to say modified color theme. And now notice this is going to be a brand new commit. That commit over in blah blah, it's the one with the license file. It's a different commit. Commits are immutable. They can't be changed. So we're now going to see our modified color theme whose parent is master. This is what we want. This is a great commit. It's ready to go up to GitHub. But if I make blah blah visible again, there's a divergence here because this commit's immutable. I can't change it forever and ever and ever. 50F856 means this. Now, I don't care about it anymore, so I can delete it anytime I want. I can just get rid of it. It's gone.
Well, that doesn't get rid of it.
That doesn't get rid of it, but
You're pretending to get rid of it.
I've forgotten the delete command right now. So I actually would probably just say delete blah blah. That makes me horrible, I know, because I do try to remember the command line, and I try not to use features in here, even though I like this. I like this a lot, and I will tell you, if you are considering Gitkraken, these features are very one-to-one to command line. Like, look at this: reset soft, reset mixed, reset hard. That's what you would have typed at command line.
Yeah.
So I don't mind if you start using this, because the reality is it's not too far away from what you'd actually have to learn. But in order to keep my skills up, I tend to view in there, look at a problem, think, what am I going to do? And then go solve the problem at command line. That's what I tend to do.
Wow.
Yeah. Right. So in any case, I could push that up to GitHub and it's done. Now we talked, earlier we saw that you've gone ahead and pushed up to GitHub, and you didn't mean to do it. So there's a couple ways around it. In some repos, if you have the ability to delete the branch like I did, you can just go delete the branch. Right?
Yeah. Well, this is great.
But you don't always have that ability to delete the branch. I've worked at organizations where no one's allowed to, well, actually, I take it back. So check this one out. I worked at an organization where no one was allowed to force push, even on branches other than master. So here I am sitting on a feature branch that I'm the only one interested in, and I've made a mistake and I want to fix that mistake. I can't force push. So I would open up GitHub, I would go to branches, I would delete the branch, and then I would push the branch new. Same effect.
Yep.
But
Yeah. Is there anything else? So what else? I just want to see that list. Do you have that list of key commands again? I don't know if you
so
can hear there's a dog outside my house barking. We don't have a dog, so that's
I have come to rely. I made this list a little bit before the show because the point of the show is not to say to you, hey, you're going to learn everything there is to know about Git, because I don't know everything there is to know about Git at all.
Yeah.
But I do know that I would prefer if this scenario stopped being reality for people. Many people see this and they chuckle a little bit, where the character says, "This is Git. It tracks collaborative work on projects through a beautiful distributed graph theory tree model." She says, "Cool. How do we use it? No idea. Just memorize these shell commands, type them to sync up. If you get errors, save your work elsewhere, delete the project, and download a fresh copy." If you learn a few basic techniques, you will never do that again.
So today we got through reset.
We
and
used branch a
We
little
used
bit.
branch. We didn't do rebase.
No.
So I wonder if we can follow up on that
Yeah.
some other time, because I tell you, I think just the way you did this, going through this stuff, I'd still be nervous to try some of it, quite frankly, in like a real scenario. And that's what happens. Unfortunately, the problem is when you need to do this stuff, it's the real world, you know? And when it's not for you, but let's say it's me or one of the viewers out there, it's like, it does get scary when you're like, oh my, like, what am I doing here? Like, you know, it's going to take a little while to get the confidence for me to try some of these things. But
Yeah, I mean, so here's the thing. Branches and tags are just sticky notes, and you are in control. So never be afraid, because if let's say right now you said to me, "You know what, Chris, I want you to demonstrate an interactive rebase to squash these 3 commits into one." But I would be terrified of messing things up.
you said demonstrate an interactive I don't know what an interactive rebase even is. So like,
Right, but to squash these 3 commits into one is what we were going to do. Let's say we were going to do that, which we're not going to do tonight, but let's say we were going to do that. Well, you might say like, "Wow, I'd really be afraid of messing things up, losing things." Okay, fine. Then now that I'm checked out on this commit, then I'm going to go ahead and say git branch, testy test all test, and I've got
that again.
I've got a marker here.
Yeah.
That
you
won't
get your marker,
go
right.
anywhere.
Yeah, that's amazing. That whole concept is really the strength of Git. And I guess the point is, really got to embrace that, an understanding of the platform we're on. It's just like, I mean, listen, I got to call myself out on this stuff, right? I use Git, and I use C#, right? I know you guys use C#, use this thing, right? When I expect developers on the team to understand the language that they're using, C#, right? I mean, not every bit of level, not everybody understands all garbage collection and stuff, but I expect people to be professional .NET developers, right? Now, here's the flip side, though, is I'm using this tool of Git, and I'm not really a professional with it, right? And I guess I need to take time and really spend time on that, because it's an important part of what we do day to day, I think.
Yeah, and so I think, we joked a little bit earlier about using SourceSafe. But the fact of the matter is that source control like SourceSafe, Subversion, CVS, Perforce, TFS, they were centralized systems that you couldn't use by yourself. You had to basically be hooked in order to commit and to merge and to even look at the source, right? And this model was a model that Linus, I always say, Git is Linus's source control for Linus, meaning Linus Torvalds, the inventor of Git, which he used because he wanted to support his Linux work. Mm-hmm. And remember, when you think about his scenario is, I'm the person who decides what goes in the kernel. I like about 6 people in the world that when they say that this work belongs in the kernel, I trust them. Everybody else I don't really trust. So I want a way for the whole world to basically say, I've been working on a clone of your work, and I propose this merge for you. And then one of my maintainers says, yeah, Linus, I think this merge is good. So I take it from them, and now it's in the kernel. He needed that distributed, decentralized way to accept it without having to grant permission to people all over the world, because that's the beauty of GitHub compared to other source control systems. I can, as long as the repo is public, I can take pull requests from anybody watching this stream without having to give them permissions in the repo and to think about how are we going to set up our permissions so that we don't get hosed by a bad actor.
Yeah.
That problem just goes away.
Yeah, it's the whole concept is pretty cool, and but I got a lot to learn still about it.
But I think because Git is so different in that decentralized aspect, that when you're sitting here on your local machine and I'm just flinging branches all over, I'm picking them up and putting them wherever I want, and it doesn't affect anybody. You couldn't even do that in Subversion. You couldn't even do that in TFS. That was non-starter. Yeah. So devs are used to systems that say, let me just give you some code, and I don't care what else has happened to these files. Just merge those changes in for me. I don't even want to think about it. Git kind of says like, whoa. You're giving me a file that doesn't match what's currently here. Somebody's got to fix this. And that's why people get frustrated with the additional amounts of conflicts and the additional amount of tricky looking graphs. And I have techniques that I use to try to keep that graph nice and straight, because I think it makes it easier to reason about. So that's we did cool. Get a little late of a start, but I guess we got an interesting workflow, even though it didn't seem like much, did it?
There was a lot there.
I think, there's a lot here. I think this was a really good thing. Listen, I can speak for myself personally. Like, I'm learning stuff tonight, right? I hope that people in the chat agree. I hope people that are watching agree. I hope people that are watching, if you're new to our show, are going to follow the Dev Talk Show and come back again next week. We always have something new and interesting going on around here. And, what I like about this show is we do such different topics, right? Sometimes we'll stay on a topic, we can do it more than one show, but, we have F#, and today it's Git, and that's, we can do whatever we want to talk about, because developers need so much stuff. So it's the beauty of the show.
Yeah, so we got some great comments when we were talking. Like Jason says, a professor. I believe I read what you're saying correctly, right? Jason is a professor is insisting that they spend a lot of time in Git because employers complain that developers aren't ready for it. And I mean, I'm just curious, what would you say to that, Andy?
Well, I haven't hired someone out of school like at that in a while, to be honest. So that it's a little hard for me to imagine, but I would think that if you didn't know Git, I don't think we would have a huge problem with it, to be perfectly honest. And the reason for that, let me back up, is because we've just switched to Git as well, right? So we came from from Visual Studio. From like Azure DevOps using what's called TF version control, really, right? And so we expect a lot of people know that, and we're bringing them onto Git, and they're getting used to it and stuff like that. So you can actually get away with not knowing Git because just learning it. Now, what you do need, I think, is an idea of source control. And there is still some relevance, even though it's not Git and it's a different non-distributed model, but other source control providers, or whatever you want to call them, is this whole idea of committing things in and having repos and things like that. I mean, I think there's still some basic knowledge that's still valuable, even if it's not Git. I don't know.
I'll throw at the slightly different thing. I think it's becoming more central to any kind of version control of whatever you're doing. That distributive model of version control is where people are going, and kind of certainly where the kids should be. And I think even beyond the developer communities, we're starting to have conversations with folks who are doing data and building AI models, and they are doing things the way we used, some of the things we joked around at the beginning of making copies, putting them in a different folder, and not fully embracing the, using Git tools and being able to version control that way. So I think it's something that continues to spread, and I think it's great that they're learning it at the high school, college level as a way of giving that skill set. Because what you want when that person first walks in the door, you want to give them a project, maybe the project they're going to be working on, maybe some new project. You want them to be able to start digging in. And if they understand how that version control works, they're going to be a little more comfortable in, oh, what does this do? Upgrade a branch, let me kind of play around in here, or I want to add something to it. I can do it in my own branch and understand how all that works.
Yeah, don't take what I said. Now, I'm thinking maybe I wasn't clear, and I agree with what you said. When I said we would be flexible if someone didn't know Git, that doesn't mean that we wouldn't rather them know
Sure.
Git coming in the door, right? And we wouldn't, there's so many things to evaluate when someone's coming in the door, right? But certainly if things are equal and someone knows Git, well, that's definitely that's going to put them over the top, I guess. And yeah, I think it's really important. I don't know how we've talked about this with Jason before. I think is that I don't even imagine how many things there are to learn in school that I took up as different years as things progressed, and there's so much to learn right now. And Jason is a student, and he's been with us on this show many times, and it's interesting to hear a different perspective. And so I appreciate hearing.
Oh yeah,
Absolutely.
I really appreciate his perspective too. I love it, and he pointed out the name of that. So for one thing, there are a lot of Git extensions in Visual Studio Code, but he pointed out one called Git Graph that I quickly installed while we were talking. And so, here's Git Graph rendering a much nicer, more accurate graph of what's really kind of going on.
Oh, that's cool.
Then, it's pretty cool. And it's right there in Visual Studio Code. The only thing that I
might not
didn't
have all
find,
those other buttons. Yeah.
the only thing I didn't find, which again, I just want to clarify that this is why I like it, is that if I go ahead and uncheck all these, you can see this nasty mess of branches and everything, and that can get in the way. And I have worked in repositories on the job that get like this. And so what I tend to do is say, like, can I just concentrate on what I'm working on? And Git Kraken kind of lets me do that by saying, okay, let me just filter out all the noise and let me just look at the graph from the perspective of this sticky note walking backwards.
Yeah, and you know what? I mean, as I'm seeing these two, right? If I hadn't seen Git Kraken, I'd probably look at this Git Graph and think, "Wow, this is great." Sure, it's pretty cool. But Git Kraken, just visually, the way they line up on the right side, all the commit comments, right, evenly, and they put the branches on the left, as opposed to the Git Graph, which sort of has both of them in the same spot. It's just harder to read. The Git Kraken one is just clear.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't get anything from them. I'm not even a Git Kraken ambassador, which they do have that program, and I'd considered joining it. But it's like an MVP style program for them. I'm not affiliated with them at all. But every once in a while, I do a tour of different systems, and I keep coming back to it saying this feature alone, which is in a couple other systems. I think SourceTree has something similar, but I keep coming back to this for this feature alone, just to say, like, well, let me really dial in here. So we'll cover some stuff another night.
Yep.
Speaking of covering things another night, I don't know if you guys know this. I got a tweet message at me while we were live, or at least I noticed it while we were live, from our friend Kevin Griffin.
Right.
And we were talking to Kevin about possibly coming on the show, and he said he is available next week. And Chris, I wanted to let you know. So I think we're confirmed with Kevin for next week's show as a guest.
Oh, that's cool.
Yep.
He'd like to talk with us about Logic apps,
right,
which are pretty cool. And he said, and I happened to watch his stream today. We were chatting back and forth on some stuff, and I've heard him say he recently fell in love with Logic apps, right? And I've seen a little bit about them. I'd love to hear his perspective on them. Kevin's an MVP. He's a guy that we all know. He's a popular speaker at conferences, and he's spoken at Tech Bash and other things. I'm sure he's spoken at code camps over the years. Hard to remember, but really smart guy, passionate developer. And I think he'll make a great guest next week talking about Logic apps, Azure Logic apps.
Yep. No, that'll be a lot of fun. So I think, a little bit longer of a show, and we'd had some technical difficulties, but there we go. We solved a few Git problems. Sorry about some of those. And hey, I'm really happy to get the feedback tonight from, we heard from Chops, Jason, Mike, anybody that was watching tonight. Whether you joined us in the chat or not, we're just glad that you're here. And if you're really enjoying the stream, make sure that no matter what platform you're watching on, you follow us. And that if you are watching on YouTube or watching our replays at video.thedevtalkshow.com up on YouTube, to hit that subscribe button. We have crossed the 100 subscriber mark on the Dev Talk Show on YouTube.
Oh, wow. That means we can get the custom URL.
So we could work on youtube.com/something, but I think I'll always have a spot in my heart for video.thedevtalkshow.com, because that's gone there from day one. Yeah. So,
I don't know. I'm going to take a second here to one other ask, right? And maybe I'm being greedy here. I love the fact that you guys come back and watch the show. Some of you are new, some of you are not new. But if you see a tweet from us, if you could retweet us and stuff like that. We're trying to spread the word about this show. We love the followers. We love but it's hard building awareness of the show. The bigger it gets, the only better it's going to get for everybody, which means we have more viewers, which is more comments and more interesting suggestions from the outside, bigger potential speaker pool and things like that. And so we'd love to help. If you could help spread the word, we would certainly appreciate it.
All right. So that'll do it. Little close to 10 p.m. on the East Coast. And next week, we're super excited. We're going to have Kevin Griffin here. That's going to be awesome. And we have some other surprises that I think we'll be announcing pretty soon. We're definitely talking to a lot of folks about being on board. And maybe eventually we'll come back and tackle those other 2 Git commands for you, Andy.
That'd be good.
But if that is it, I want to thank, my co-hosts, Andy and Rich, doing such a great job making this all technically possible and asking great questions and filling in when, for some reason, Skype doesn't work too well for me. So I'm going to have to examine that during the week. But I want to thank all of you joining in chat, watching us now or in the future. If you're watching us in the future on YouTube, make sure you hit that like button so we know you like this topic, and leave us some questions in the comments. We'll get to them, and we'll definitely talk about what you want to talk about. So until next time, until May, finally, of 2020, we'll see you next time here on the Dev Talk Show.